or a glass of water. That's your choice. Now, what do you get if you choose the warm chocolate cake? What do you get?
Cavities.
Joy. Joy is what you get. An oral sensation like none other. That's what you get. Now, what do you get if you choose the glass of water? Nothing. Buckus. That right there is the greatest challenge that you will ever face your whole life long. And that is, when you make a poor choice, you're rewarded. When you make a good choice, you get nothing. And that will be the challenge that you will be faced with all day, every single day. And we come by this desire to pleasure ourselves very early in life. You see, all day we're walking through a minefield of solicitations on our desire to immediately gratify ourselves. And it requires you having this steadfast will of control, this self-control in order to sustain your intended positive choice structure. Here's the great paradox that you're faced with. What gives you short-term pleasure? The chocolate cake? Saying, no, I don't want to deal with this right now, and walking out of the room, right? Going home instead of working out creates long-term pain. On the other side of the equation, short-term pain, making the phone call, going to the meeting, creates long-term pleasure. My mentor, Jim Rohn, put it this way. He said, in life, you will suffer one of two pains. Right there's great wisdom. You have to hear it. In life, you will
suffer.
Yeah, stop trying to avoid that deal. You will suffer. That's the bad news. Here's the good news. You get to pick your suffering. The pain of discipline or the pain of regret. And as he said, the pain of discipline weighs ounces. Picking up the phone, going to the meeting, saying you're sorry. However, the pain of regret weighs tons. Divorce, bankruptcy, headache, heartache, lost and estranged relationships. So as you are going through this minefield of solicitations on your weakest part of your nature, you have to keep these things in mind. As Oprah said to me, I said, so what are some of the ways that you're working to try to change the course for you? She says, the hardest thing is that if I make a poor choice, I'm gratified. If I make a good choice, I get nothing. And so I had to decide, what can I get if I make a good choice? She says, I decided that if I made a good choice, it's a miracle. I'm going to make a miracle. She says, because if I don't choose the chocolate cake, it's a miracle! And at least I can say, instead of the chocolate cake, I'm choosing a miracle. And she says, all I'm trying to do throughout the day is to be a miracle maker. And at the end of the day, I count up how many times today did I make a miracle. Which for her was a positive choice that gave her no physical or emotional or psychological reward. She's giving her the emotional and psychological reward of a miracle. So I pass that advice on to you because I think it's very helpful. The last trap, and this is what it is. What's easy to do, and everything I've told you here is easy, is also easy not to do. And this is really something that trips people up. Because it's so easy, they disregard it. They think, oh, well, it can't be that easy, so I'm going to go over here and chase these more complicated and fanciful answers. You see, it's easy to eat an apple a day. It's easy to walk around the block for your good health. It's easy to say you're sorry, pick up the phone and make calls, write thank you letters, drink 10 glasses of water a day. All those things are easy, but they're also easy not to do. And that's what gets neglected. Neglecting the easy things is what separates. So what follows choices? When you ultimately decide to do something different, what has to happen after that? So you can't just sit on your couch saying, I'm making a different choice, I'm making a different choice. You have to get up off the damn couch, go out the front door and make something happen. So behavior is the next line of code in the operating system. The biggest problem with behavior is this. 95% of our behavior is totally and completely unconscious, which means we're not making a decision about it at all. You see, when you first learn to drive a car, everything is, you're dealing with it in real time, and everything seems complicated, but today you can drive, have a conversation, eat, put on your makeup, God forbid, text, without thinking about it at all. You see, 95% of all your behavior is completely unconscious. You're not thinking about it. People actually get up, off the couch, go to the refrigerator, take food out, eat it and consume it without actually being consciously aware that they have just done that. Take money out of their wallet, spend it, unconscious about what they've actually done. So the first thing you have to do is to get an awareness. I'll give you for instance for me. So when I was 20 years of age, I was in the real estate business. First year, I did really well, and I'm sitting in front of the desk of my CPA, and he's punching in all the numbers, and the ticker tape's going like this, and he's having a grand old time, snickering and laughing. And at the end of it, he says, "Congratulations, son, you owe over $100,000 in taxes." And I said, "What? I don't have $100,000 just lying around." He says, "Why? You earned several times that. Of course you set aside the money to pay your taxes." And I said, "Well, look at me. Does it look like I have set aside that money?" And he did me a great favor. He pushed himself from his desk. He stood up and he pointed his finger at me and he said, "Son, you have to get a grip. I've seen this 1,000 times. You continue on this current trajectory and you will dig your financial grave with your wallet. Stop it." And he put his finger on what has become the most powerful personal development tool I've ever discovered. Now you gotta know, I've been in this industry for 20 years. I've bought, tried, sent every personal development tool under the sun, and this is the most important one. He put his finger on a 50-cent notepad and he slid it across the table. And he said, "I want you to write down every single penny you spend for the next 30 days. He said, "I don't care if it's a pack of gum at the convenience store, you fill up the air of tires with 50 cents, you buy a round of drink for your buddies, $2,000 for a new suit, it all goes on this little notepad." And I said, "Yes, sir." And literally, it wasn't a week and a half, 2 weeks into it when I realized, oh my God, how money had been just pouring out of my pockets without me even knowing it. And by having to actually track it, see it visibly, it changed my behavior from that point forward. And so I went from earning a lot of money, being worth a lot of money on the same money, because I got an awareness about the behavior I had with money. And so that's the first suggestion when it comes to changing your behavior. The second one is this. I learned this from Jim Rohn, and I met him in 1994, totally changed my life. And I'm in this seminar, and he says, "How many people here, want to have more?" And I think, "Oh, Jesus, what do I got to do now? I'm just killing myself already. What do I got to do?" Yeah, yes, of course I want to have more, but what do I have to do? And he said, "Look, it's not what you do, it's who you become. Success is not a pursuit. What you pursue can elude you. It's the person you become in the process." He said, if you want to have more, you have to become more. Success is not something you pursue. What you pursue eludes you. He said it can be kind of like trying to chase butterflies. He said, instead, success is something you attract by the person you become. So let me give you a for instance. So I was talking to a friend of mine, and he was complaining about his wife going, "Oh, she doesn't do this, and I can't believe what she does. She drives me crazy." I'm like, "Dude, you gotta stop. This woman is fantastic, and you're a boob. You're lucky she even married you." And that was the truth. And I said, let me tell you something that I did. Let me explain to you. So everybody loves Christmas. I love Thanksgiving. Why? Food, family, and gratitude. What could be more awesome than that? One year, I'm writing out all my Thanksgiving cards. I don't send Christmas cards, I send Thanksgiving cards to the people in my life that matter the most. And I wrote out all my Thanksgiving cards, and I only had one left to do. And the one that I had left to do was the one for my wife. And at the time, earlier that day, we had an epic fight, right? And I wasn't feeling very thankful in the moment. So I was struggling with this card a bit, right? So then I had to back up and say, okay, stop. What do I really love and appreciate? Why did I marry her? And how does she make me feel? And I wrote out this beautiful card. And I saved it because Thanksgiving wasn't for a few days. But the rest of our day went amazingly well. And that night I remember thinking, what if I could do that every day? So I took an empty journal, and at the end of every day, I just wrote down one thing that I loved and appreciated about my wife that day. And it could be something simple, like the scrumptious meal that she prepared, or the loving care she took of our dogs, or overhearing her giving support to a friend, or even just walking in the kitchen and seeing her and how she struck me in the moment. I just wrote it down secretly. She didn't know I was doing it. And I did it for an entire year. I filled the journal up cover to cover. And at the end of the year, it was Thanksgiving again. I put it in a big bow on it, and I gave it to her as a gift. And she started to read it, and she cried and said it was the best gift she ever got, which was saying something, because 4 months earlier was her birthday, and I gave her a BMW. Which struck me as like, wow, I could have really saved a lot of money there. So I told my friend, I said, why don't you just for 30 days, okay? Just for 30 days, write down one thing that you really love and appreciate about your wife. And just do it in secret. Don't tell her you're doing it. So he agreed to do it, and literally 2 weeks into it, he calls me and he's like, dude, you won't believe how much she's changed. I told you he was a boob, right? He said, we've never been closer, we've never been more intimate, we've had the most amazing conversations. I've never been more in love with her than I am right now. You see, when you change how you look at a situation, the situation changes, right? And so this is what I encourage you to do. Whatever it is that you're struggling with that is difficult for you, I want you to think, how can you see what's positive about that? And just track it for a little while and see what happens to show up. This is my beautiful bride there. Now, behavior repeated become habits, okay? Take a single behavior, repeat them over time, and they become habits. And this is really the core of the entire operating system of what it's going to take for you to be successful are your habits. Habits is the central line of code in your operating system. When you repeat a behavior, it develops what's called a neurosignature. In your gray matter, which is very malleable, it develops, in less technical terms, a brain groove, okay? The more you repeat a pattern, the more that signature gets stronger and stronger and stronger, so that ultimately you can do it without thinking about it at all. And what happens is that these habits, they start out like cobwebs, but then they become thick as cables. And it takes about 300 repetitions of not doing the previous habit and doing a new one to weaken this one in order to strengthen another to replace it. And willpower does not work. The reason why we have the largest diet industry in the history of humanity, and we've never been more fat in the history of humanity, is because they rely on willpower. Willpower doesn't work. Instead, what you need is why power. What I mean by that is, let's say I took a 300-foot steel beam and I laid it on the floor of this conference hall. And I said, if you just walk on top of it from one end to the other, at the other side I'll give you 20 bucks. How many people would do it? Yeah, it's an easy 20 bucks, right? But what if I took that 300-foot steel beam and I put it atop two 100-story buildings? And I said, if you walk across the beam, I'll give you 20 bucks. How many people would do it? But what if on the other building is your child, and the building is on fire, and if you don't go across that beam, they will perish and die right before your eyes. How many people will go across that beam now? I did have one person in an audience say, I have 2 children. Which child? Doesn't seem right. Doesn't seem right. So here's what I want you to observe. The first time I asked you, you said, no way, no how. The risk, the danger is too great. The second time, you shot your hand up, and I didn't even offer you 20 bucks. The lesson here is, when you can figure out your reason why to do something, and it's urgent, it's compelling, it's powerful, it's desirous deepest into your core, you will overcome almost anyhow. It is not a matter of how for any of you in this audience for your great success. It is a matter of why. And if you get your why so urgent, so important, nothing, and I mean nothing, no circumstances, no naysayers, no rejections, no failures, nothing will stop you from getting to the other side. So that's the reason why inside the Living Your Best Year Ever, we help you get clear about what your reasons why are. Because it's what you're going to need as you start trying to change your habit structures. Because trust me, changing your habits is hard, difficult work. It's as difficult as trying to get off of substance abuse, because your previous patterns are constantly pulling you back into the stream of its normal pathway. So inside the compound effect are strategies for you to uproot your bad habits. By the way, I heard that if you get Success Club 5 this month, you're actually getting a copy of the and inside there are 7 ways to install the success habits that you need to take you in the direction you want to go. So what's the last line of code? What's the last thing that determines whether you can get to the other side of all the ambitions, goals, and desires that you have in life? Ultimately, it just comes down to time. Time is what allows the compound effect to take effect, to show you visibly the extraordinary outcome of those sustained positive choices. But I'm going to give you one last warning, and it's this. This is where most people fall and fail. And if you master this skill, You can beat anybody at anything. This is a belief that my father instilled with me. He says, no matter how experienced, how skilled anybody is, you could beat anybody at anything if you just outlast them. Because most people will drift, right? It's the whole tortoise and the hare story. The hare is faster, more skilled, more experienced, but the tortoise beats it every time. Not because of how fast they started, right? It's never about how fast you start. At the beginning of the race, it's clustered and all these people are all fired up and everybody's gonna set new records. It's how long you last. And there's just a few people that ever get to the other side of the race. And this is what I want to encourage all of you to do, is to worry about how long you last more than how fast you start. Consistency wins every single time. Now I want to give you, I have just a few minutes. I want to give you one last principle, because somebody asked me, is there anything you can do to sort of accelerate this process? And I said, well, really, no, but there's one thing that you could do to really crush it. I mean, to really take leaps ahead of your competition or your contemporaries. And here's what it is. And I learned it when I was in real estate. I went to a seminar, first got started, 20 years of age, no business being in the real estate business, just a brand new newbie. And I took the seminar leader out to lunch and I said, dude, tell me, what do I got to do to be successful? I'll do anything. He says, anything? I said, I'll do anything. He says, then I'll give you the number one tip for you being successful. I said, I'm ready. He says, go fail. Like, huh? He's like, yeah, go fail, go fail fast, and go fail big. I'm like, dude, I thought the whole idea of success was avoiding failure. And he said, no, it's quite the opposite, in fact. And then he gave me this quote from Thomas Watson, who said, the key to your success is massive failure. Now, don't just hear that as a motivational quip. What if that's true? Let that marinate on your brain for a second. The key to success is massive failure. I mean, just like building a muscle, right? The key to growth is massive, repeated failure, bringing it to the point of failure. Now, I can see by the looks on your face, I had the same look when he said this to me. So he drew out this little analogy that I'm going to pass along to you, because I think it can make a profound difference on how you go forth after this meeting. He said, life is like a pendulum. And on one side of the pendulum is pain, rejection, sadness, and defeat. On the other side of the pendulum is love, joy, happiness, and success. He said if you just stand still, you won't experience any pain, rejection, and sadness, but you won't experience any joy, love, and happiness either. You can't live under a bridge. Ultimately, you got to mix amongst people. And so what ends up happening is people end up finding this comfort zone. They're only willing to experience so much pain, rejection, and sadness, so they only experience so much joy, love, and success. And this ends up becoming their comfort zone. And anything outside of that, they immediately retreat back into their comfort zone. He said, now, you really can't push the pendulum on the side of success. He must have went to a Jim Rohn seminar, which you pursue will elude you. The one side you can control is the side of failure. So your job is to push the pendulum on the side of failure, rejection, defeat, and sadness as hard, as wide, and as often as you can. And I promise you, it will swing back on the other side. So I took him at face value. I said, all right, I got nothing to lose. So in the real estate business, there's a few places you can go get a lot of pain, rejection, defeat, and sadness really quickly. Okay? One of them is in the with expired listings. These are people who had their house on the market with another agent and didn't sell, and 20 agents descend on them by about 6 o'clock in the morning. By the 10th or 12th call, they are mad, angry, and upset. Lots of pain and rejection to be had there. Once I finished with all of those, bright and early in the morning, then I went to the place that brings shivers down spines of realtors. And there are these people called for sale by owners, FSBOs, right? They hate realtors so much, they wouldn't even think of listing their house with one. Knock on a few of those doors, lots of pain, rejection, and sadness to be had there. Then I would park my car at the end of a street, take a little notepad, put 50 check boxes on it, and just go door to door in a white shirt and a tie. Right? People love that, right? Knock, knock, knock. Do you plan on buying and selling a house? And things like slam. Dogs chase me down the street. Kids throwing rocks at me from across the street. Every time somebody told me no or slammed the door in my face, how did I feel? Check. Great. One more from being done. This sucks, right? Then I would go home at 5 to 9 was money time. And I would just sit in a chair, strap myself in, a glass of water, no getting up to go pee, and I would just cold call for 4 hours straight. Just repeated rejection, defeat, and sadness. I pushed the pendulum on the side high and wide. Now, as he promised, I went into an office of 44 veteran agents, 20 years of age. No business being in the real estate business. And in 90 days, I had more listings and more escrows than the entire office combined. As he promised, it swung equally on the other side. You see, some of those expired listings says, hell, you're just as good as anybody. Some of these for sale by owners said, for crying out loud, if you show up here again, I think I'm going to shoot you. Just list this damn thing. Some of those people that I knocked on the door says, we're just thinking about what this house is worth. Why don't you come in and tell us? Have a cup of tea, dear. Some of those people I called and said, yeah, our daughter's looking for a house right now. Call her right now. You see, I just increased my odds of finding the success where the pendulum swung on the other side. And even to this day, if I get to the end of the month and I have not had some sort of embarrassing, awful, or defeat or failure of some kind, I am mad at myself. Why? Because I want more success than I have right now. What's the key to it? More failure. So if I go through the whole month without failing, I know that I have not increased my success. You see, when you adopt this understanding and this mindset where you take the thing that you fear and you turn it into fun, when you decide to not accept but to love failure, here's what I want to tell you. This is my last comment that I really want you to get. The only thing stopping you from realizing your potential, and trust me, you are a fraction of it right now. The only thing is fear. And when you turn fear into fun, when you take the thing that you're trying to avoid into your pursuit and you celebrate it, you remove the stopgap to your potential. And I'm telling you, you become unstoppable, right? So instead of having a contest for how much success you can accumulate, new coaches that you recruit or product revenue, here's what I want you to do instead. Make a 100 no club and a contest. And see who can get to 100 no's the fastest. And whoever gets there wins. And then there's a booby prize. The booby prize is who has the most embarrassing, heart-stomping, gut-wrenching story of defeat. Whoever is the best story wins. Put him on the shoulder. Carry him around. I'm telling you, when you turn it away from fear and make it fun, and you pursue it instead of trying to avoid it, it releases your potential. It accelerates your success, and nothing can stop you. So the last thing I'm going to ask you to do is today, draw a line in the sand. Resolve. This is it. You've made resolutions, you've made goals, you've gone to conferences, you've listened to CDs, read books before, you made some decisions, but today, it's not a decision, it's a resolve. And when you get up from your chair, you're stepping over that line. I will not live as I have lived before sitting in this chair. I will make positive choices, I will stick to them. Nothing will stop me. Look, see the building of your Beachbody business as this giant mountain in life. When you go back to your home and your communities and your neighborhoods, you're going to start climbing this mountain. And people are going to come up to you, people who say that they love you and support you, friends and family, so forth, they go, what are you doing climbing that mountain? You have a job, you're lucky to have a job in this economy. Get off that mountain before you get hurt. And you're going to have to look them in the eye and you say, you see this mountain? I'm going to the top. And you're going to climb up a little bit further. And then some people are going to, on Facebook or college chums, I heard about that mountain. That mountain, I think it's a scam. That mountain's a scam. You shouldn't be climbing that mountain. I'm just here to protect you. You really shouldn't do that. And you're going to have to look them in the eye and you say, see this mountain? I'm going to the top. And you're going to climb up a little bit further and people will come out of the woodwork like, okay, man, if you're so intent on climbing mountains, I got a much better mountain here. It's faster, the compensation is better, and all the rest of that. And you're going to have to look them in the eye and you say, you see this mountain?
I'm going.
You're going to see me waving from the top or laying dead on the side. I am not coming back. It is the last attribute you need to accomplish any dream, hope, or desire that you've got. And I hope that you take it to its ultimate level. Maybe one day we're knee to knee because we're presenting you on the cover of Success Magazine. Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage Executive Director of Regional Sales, Jeremy Red.
All right. Talk about it.